The single most important thing an organization has to figure out after establishing itself is hiring. The people you hire and how you hire them is going to impact every aspect of your company. No matter how great your idea is or how much funding you have, it all boils down to the people who are going to help you build it. Unfortunately, some organizations do not have a well-defined and thought-out hiring process. They either use a very unstructured process that widely varies between candidates and positions, or they simply have no official hiring process, leaving it to the hiring manager to decide who and how they're going to hire. This is a grave mistake. Hiring should not be treated as a side effect of needing more resources. Your hiring process should be one of the most important aspects of how you run your organizations. Companies like Google, Amazon, and Facebook understand this. If you ever interview for a position with one of those companies, you'll immediately be able to tell how seriously they take the process. You should do the same. What are the principles of a good hiring process? A good hiring process has three basic principles. First, it is straightforward. Second, it tries to be as free of bias as possible. Third, it has a defined limitation on both time and process. Straightforward means there's no need for a hiring process to have 10 different steps, 15 people involved, and require candidates to interview 7 times. More is not merrier when it comes to hiring processes. Even places like Google found out after years of hiring tens of thousands of people that they only need 4 interviews to predict whether someone should be hired with 86% confidence. If Google can do with no more than 4 interviews, so can you. Free of bias means that the hiring process takes active steps to deal with our natural tendencies for a wide range of biases. From hiring people who look and talk like us, to making false assumptions about candidates, or even just interviewing people when we are tired or hungry. No hiring process will ever be completely free of biases. Whenever humans are involved, you're always going to have some level of bias. However, with correct tools, you can dramatically reduce it. Define limitation means that you avoid the knight in shiny armor fallacy. In other words, you don't look for the perfect candidate, you look for the first candidate that meets your hiring requirements. You avoid wasting time and energy trying to hire these so-called best people. Rather, you have clear limitations on time and processes as to when a hiring decision should be made. You can roughly divide your hiring process into 2 main parts. You have your initial filtering and you have your in-depth interviews. Initial filtering includes everything that has to do with helping both you and the candidates decide if you want to spend more time figuring out each other without spending too much energy. It doesn't include on-site interviews or lengthy phone calls. It's important to note that this part of the process is designed for both you and the candidate. You want them to filter you as much as you filtered them. If they know that you're not a good match for them, it's preferable to everyone in the process that they'll be able to drop out on their own before the more in-depth interviews. In-depth interviews are, as the name suggests, more time-consuming, and they usually include detailed phone interviews and on-site visits. This is where the bulk of the hiring process happens. In the next video, we'll talk about the best practices of how to perform initial filtering.